AEW hosted a very eventful episode of Dynamite. This was the third straight week Dynamite brought in over 1 million viewers, and TNT took time to gloat about it this week, issuing a press release touting it as Wednesday's #1 cable program in the 18 to 49 demo for the third straight week. AEW had been promoting a major live event announcement, which turned out to be that week 2 of their Rampage show, their new Rampage show, which starts on Friday the 13th, week 2 of the show on August 20th is going to be airing from the 23,000-seat United Center in Chicago. 2 weeks before AEW invades the Chicago area for 3 straight shows, Dynamite, Rampage, and All Out, in early September, all of which are taking place at the smaller Now Arena, which is in a suburb of Chicago, almost an hour away. They have what they clearly believe is a big attraction for this August 20th Rampage for what they're calling the First Dance. That is the title they have trademarked for this event. And that attraction is CM Punk. Now, I did say on this podcast only a few weeks ago, before the Punk rumors even started, it was, I think, on the same show where I talked about Jimmy Uso's DUI arrest, that I thought they had outgrown the smaller venue in Chicago. I mean, it's nice to get 10 or 11,000 people in the building, but why limit yourself to 10 when you could do double that for a big show like All Out? You know, I said going forward they should book the United Center for all of their major shows. I understand that it's an expensive venue to run, like Madison Square Garden, which is why WWE doesn't run there as often. But even just once a year for All Out, I think it's the way to go. And now, they did it a lot quicker than I thought they would, and they did it for a live TV show on a Friday night. The Punk news leaking, or the Punk rumors, whatever you want to call it, leaking. And by the way, I'm not so sure that they didn't want it to leak. Now that we see what they're doing, it has me thinking they may have intentionally wanted this news to get out early. The Punk news was going to help a lot. But even without Punk, had they booked the United Center for All Out, I truly believe they could have easily gotten 15,000 people into the building for that show. Punk, just handed them a gift. You look at that pre-sale on Friday, good Lord. They moved over 12,000 tickets in the pre-sale, with more held back for the general public on sale tomorrow. Now just think about this. That 1-hour Rampage show has a chance at becoming the highest attended non-WWE show in the United States since 1999. Depending on how many seats they set it up for. I know the G1 Supercard at MSG a couple of years ago with Ring of Honor and New Japan. I was at that show. It was a packed house. They had over 16,000 people in the building that night. AEW may only be able to set up for 14 or 15,000. But they could potentially open it up to more. And if they do, and if they fill those seats up, that would be the new record for a non-WWE event in over 20 years. And then a month later, they're going to break their own record with their New York City debut at Arthur Ashe Stadium. So this is huge for them. This is huge for a company that is still growing and trying to show that they can fill the bigger arenas and the bigger venues, stadiums, and not just the smaller buildings. With WWE, you come to expect it. It's still very impressive when they can pack 50,000 people in a stadium, but WWE has done that over and over again over a period of decades. You think of big events, WrestleMania 3, SummerSlam at Wembley Stadium. Now it's like Mania and sometimes the Rumble, and now SummerSlam. Every year it's in some big dome or big stadium. They have over 40,000 sold for SummerSlam next month, or actually this month in a few weeks. So it's still impressive, but it's to be expected because they have a track record of doing that. For AEW, they're trying to start their own track record. And the company is only about 2 years old. This is a huge deal for them, the fact that they are being able to put numbers up like this. Now, the only reason they would book Chicago 2 weeks before is to debut CM Punk and give themselves 2 weeks to promote his first match for All Out. It's what makes the most sense given this announcement and given the backstage segment that aired on Wednesday with Darby Allin saying that he'll be in Chicago and that a lot of men claim to be the greatest, but there's only one place to really prove that. That's in AEW. Even if you think you're the best in the world, They're not exactly being subtle about this. Punk will be there. You don't try to fill a bigger building on hype for CM Punk, which is clearly what they're doing. I mean, Tony Khan has been very coy when he has been asked about this, and he has not been shy about shooting down rumors. He just did on Busted Open the other day. There was a report that he and the other EVPs had secretly flown on his private plane to Chicago or to the United Center to shoot some material for something. And he shot that down and said, this is bogus. I wasn't even in the same state with the other EVP. So when there's, some kind of false report or rumor, he's not shy about shooting it down. The only thing he said about these rumors is, boy, these are interesting rumors, and I really don't have any comment. I really can't comment on it. You don't play off of that hype for CM Punk and then not deliver CM Punk. Not unless you want the murder rate in Chicago to spike even higher. So it's definitely happening. I believe that. And Darby Allin looks to be his first opponent. Darby is one of the 5 AEW names that Punk singled out earlier this year as names that he would like to work with if he ever came back to wrestling. It was Darby, Will Hobbs, Ricky Starks, Brian Pillman Jr., and Jungle Boy. Now, I like the match. I don't think it hurts Darby at all if he goes in there and loses to Punk in his first match back in Chicago. Debuting at the United Center has got to be special for him because he was in the building for the first show ever held at the United Center, which was the 1994 SummerSlam. And he was there for the big cage match between Bret and Owen Hart, which is one of his favorite matches. It's mine too. It's my favorite steel cage match of all time. Walking out to his music in that building after 7 years away, that has to mean something to him. Now, also on Dynamite this week, Hangman Adam Page and the Dark Order lost to the Elite in their 10-man tag elimination match with Omega pinning Hangman. That is now 2 pinfall wins for Omega over Adam Page, going back to their Full Gear match last November. They tossed a hand grenade into Hangman's quest for the title, and in this week's Observer, Meltzer reports that Page is not getting the main event at All Out against Kenny Omega. He says at one point that was the plan, but plans change. I think it'll say that on Dave's tombstone after he dies. God wasn't planning to take him yet, but plans change. We'll see what they have in mind. Punk looks like if he wrestles it All Out, it probably would be against Darby Allin. Danielson, I'm hoping they save for the New York City show. I've seen Orange Cassidy's name mentioned. Christian Cage mentioned as a possibility for the main event at All Out. That would be underwhelming. I mean, even though I think the Christian match would be very good, I think a match with him and Omega would be a great idea. But to me, that's a big Dynamite match. That's not your main event at one of your biggest shows of the year. And I'm not saying they can't drag this Hangman story out a little bit longer. I mean, remember, I suggested Full Gear for the match originally. That was my original suggestion. 1 year later, you build up to a big Hangman win against Omega at Full Gear. And it could still happen. But here's what I'm wondering. Because all of this has me thinking. Maybe they're delaying the match a few weeks to the Arthur Ashe show. They could still have Proud and Powerful challenge the Bucks for the tag team titles on that show in Queens and win them. Doesn't mean that match has to headline. That could be the co-main event. You could headline with Hangman against Kenny Omega on what we already know is going to be the biggest show in AEW history. They're going to be putting their full promotional muscle behind it. They know they're going to get almost 20,000 people in the stadium that night. This is going to be a huge show. Perhaps their biggest Dynamite audience. I'm sure that's what they're going to be gunning for that night. Maybe that's the idea, to get as many eyeballs as possible at their biggest show ever and have the match there and have Hangman Page go over and become the champion. It's just something to ponder. With Hangman, I don't want to see happen to him what happened to Braun Strowman 4 years ago, when he was as popular as he had ever been, and they had a chance to belt him, and they didn't do it. And he never really recovered from that. I mean, not that he wasn't pushed ever again after that, but to me, he never regained that level of fan enthusiasm to see him become the champion and go all the way. He never really recovered from that. Now, maybe I've just been so conditioned and abused by WWE booking over the years that I'm applying the same logic here in a situation where it doesn't apply. I trust that Tony Khan has a plan here. I may not always agree with that plan, but do I believe they have a long-term or longer-term vision? I mean, this story's been playing out now for probably a year or more, really, if you take it all the way back. I trust that Khan has a plan here, the way I usually trust that Triple H has a plan on NXT. And sometimes Vince McMahon will ruin those plans by calling one or two people up at the most inopportune time to the main roster. But I've said the same thing in the past about Triple H, where I kind of trust in the plan when it comes to their key people and their key storylines on NXT. I feel the same way about Tony Khan and the top stories in AEW. But I'm starting to think the real play here for this match may be a Hangman win in New York City. Lance Archer will defend his IWGP United States Championship at the New Japan Resurgence show in LA on August 14th. And it will be against Hiroshi Tanahashi, the ace of New Japan, who appeared on Dynamite in a video message challenging the champion to a match. This will be Tanahashi's first match on U.S. soil since February of last year, so it will not be happening at an AEW event, but Jon Moxley cut a promo on Tanahashi later in the show, and with no obvious match for Moxley at All Out, it has me thinking that we still might get Tanahashi in an AEW ring sooner than later. You know, if AEW can get Punk and Tanahashi on that All Out show in separate matches, that's huge. You know, for the AEW audience who knows who these people are, they obviously know who Punk is. Any even casual wrestling fans, it's been 7 years, but they know who CM Punk is. Tanahashi, yeah, I mean, if you talk to casual WWE fans, they may not know who the hell that is, but I guarantee you the majority of the AEW audience, they've heard of Tanahashi. They know who a lot of those people are. To them, it would be a very big deal. Those would be two big attractions to get on that pay-per-view.